There are fields of sweet corn all around Hastings, and that means that the sweet corn stands are open for business. So let's head back to my kitchen and see what we can come up with beyond just that basic corn on the cob. So sweet corn season is a little bit on the short side where we live. So it's one of those things where once you have the opportunity, you want to have it as much as possible, but you don't want corn, corn, corn. So we're going to talk about different ways that you can use that sweet corn. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make an orzo salad. So if you've never used orzo before, it's a little pasta that looks just like this. It almost looks like little grains of rice. So we are going to boil that in water. So we'll start getting our water boiling. And while we do that, we're gonna get our vegetables ready because this is gonna be a cold salad. So I have 1 ear of corn, and what I'm gonna do is just simply take a foil-lined baking tray, and I have a little corn slicer. You could use a knife if you wanted to, but this is really nice and fast. So I have my corn already cleaned up, and I'm just gonna run this along here, and you can see I can just slice it right off the cob. And usually what I do with this slicer is I'll take it and I'll do the back half of the corn and then I'll flip the cob over. That way I'm not getting my fingers in the way. So now the next vegetable that I'm going to use is a zucchini. And I have just one small zucchini for this. So I'm gonna grab it. I'm gonna start by cutting off the ends. And then I'm simply just going to chop it up into small bite-sized pieces. Remember, this is going to be a salad, so we don't want big honking pieces that you have to kind of bonk around. You want to make it easy and bite-sized. So now that I've got some wedges here, I'm just going to keep cutting those pieces smaller and smaller. Once I have my pieces as small as I want, I'm going to move them over to my pan and add it to the corn. One thing to keep in mind when you're cutting vegetables is my smallest piece that I can't change anything about is that corn. So what I want to do so things bake nice and evenly is cut all of my other vegetables down to about the size of those kernels of corn. That way I'm not going to have very, very, very overdone corn because everything will get done at about the same amount of time. So we've got our corn, and we've got our zucchini, and we've kind of got the start of a stoplight going here. So we're gonna finish that up with a red pepper. So I have one red pepper. We're gonna slice this down too, keeping in mind, just like we did with that zucchini, that we want our pieces to be about the same size. So I'm gonna slice the top, slice the bottom, and then what I'm gonna do is cut out this seed core in the middle. Starting to smell like summertime with the vegetables. Alrighty, so we've got those seeds taken out of there, and we'll just do some slicing and some dicing. And now I'm just going to break these down into some smaller pieces as well. So while I've been cutting my vegetables, my water has now come to a boil. I'm going to add my orzo. What I'm doing with my mixtures, I have 1 cup of orzo and I have 2 quarts of water in here. If you want to, you can salt the water, but I'm putting salt in my recipe later, so I'm gonna hang tight for right now. So I'm simply going to take my orzo, put it into this water, give it a stir, and I'm gonna bring it back up to a boil, and I'm gonna let that go for about 8 to 10 minutes. And while I do that, I'm gonna go back to working on my vegetables. So I'm just simply gonna come on back over and keep cutting my red pepper. So now we have our stoplights of vegetables. We have our red peppers, our yellow corn, and our green zucchini. So we're gonna get this ready for an oven because we wanna roast it before we add it to our salad. So in here, I've got a teaspoon of olive oil, and then I've got some pepper and some salt. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stir to combine these all together. And I'm just gonna fold this, that way those flavors start to mix together when it roasts in the oven. And I'm gonna put this into a 400-degree oven, and I'm gonna put it in for about 7 minutes. And I'm gonna check on it, stir it again after those 7 minutes, and I'm actually gonna do that 3 or 4 times. So it's in the oven for about 20 to 25 minutes, just so that they're gently roasted. We still want some snap to them when we bite into them in the salad, but we do want that roasted flavor. So 400-degree oven for 7 minutes. We boiled our orzo for 8 minutes, and we roasted our zucchini our red pepper, and of course our sweet corn. And now we've let these totally cool down. And so we're ready to start combining them and making them a salad. So let's start by making the dressing. So the first thing we're going to do is we have a larger bowl that we're going to combine everything into. So we have 3 tablespoons of olive oil. To that 3 tablespoons, we are going to add the zest of 1 lemon. So I have my zester here. And remember, it's been a while since we've zested something. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take off that yellow color, but as soon as we get down into that white, that's where the bitterness is. So we want that to just skim the surface. And with my zester, it collects all the zest in the back. So we'll just work our way around. So we're gonna take our zest, flip her out, plop it in our olive oil. And now what we're gonna do is we're also going to add some lemon juice. So we're gonna break that membrane, roll it around, do a little slice, and squeeze. Remember, we've got it upside down so none of those seeds fall in. And we're actually going to take 1 more lemon. We don't need the zest from the other lemon, but we do want that juice. And squeeze. And now our last liquid we're gonna add is a teaspoon of honey. So we're gonna reach in there, plopper that out. And now we're gonna whisk that all together. We'll let that sit there for a moment. And now what we're gonna do is we're going to ribbon some basil. So what I've got here is some basil, and I'm going to take it, and first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut off any stems that might be at the end. Get that out of the way because we don't need any of that woody texture in there. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna roll up my basil and kind of make a basil burrito. And I'm gonna roll, 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 roll. And then I'm just gonna slice it into nice, fine ribbons. Now what I can do, pick them up, and I'm going to break them apart as they fall in, just like that. And when it's all said and done, I want about a 1/2 cup of basil added in there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some cheese to this. And I'm going to do that by first getting rid of these goobers. I'm going to take my cheese, and I want about a 1/2 cup of cheese. And with this, I'm going to cut it into some nice cubes. I want them to be about a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. And so I'm just gonna take my time and make these all nice and pretty while I cut them apart. And once I get those cubed, I'm just gonna drop them into my bowl. I'm just gonna keep on cubing. So I have my cheese all cubed up in my bowl. And what I'm gonna do is I'll move my cutting board out to the side so I can pull this square ahead of me. I'm gonna take all of those roasted vegetables and I'm gonna add those. And then I've already fluffed my orzo with a fork to break apart those pieces. So I'm just gonna add that back in. I'm gently going to take my spoon and fold this all together. And once I've got it stirred together for the most part, I'm gonna grab my salt and my pepper. I'm gonna season it a smidgen. My pepper, let's add some salt. And I'm gonna stir it one more time. After I've got it all stirred together, I'm gonna put this in the refrigerator to chill it, and it's time to start making a side dish before we head into our main dish. We have that cold salad, but we want a hot side dish to go with our corn fest kind of dinner. So I've already started taking the ears of corn and cutting the actual kernels off, and I'm going to keep doing that. I eventually want to clean 10 ears of corn, and so I, like I showed you before, have my little handy dandy corn cutter, but you could just use a knife if you have that, and it's one of those things where you can easily just set it up and run the knife down the side, just making sure you don't go too deep into the cob. So I'm just going to take some time and clean off all of my ears of corn and put it into this big old bowl, and then we'll get ready to start cooking it. So while I was cutting my corn, I started melting 1/4 cup of butter, a tablespoon of sugar, and 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. And I've got this really nice melty mixture. So I'm gonna put this on medium, and I'm gonna start her up, and I'm gonna put in my ears of corn. Now my family calls this now and later corn, and the reason for that is pretty dang simple. We eat some of it right away or now, and then we save some for later. This corn is pretty magical in that once you cook it, and it cooks really fast, just 3 minutes, but once you cook it, you can serve up some for dinner, and then you can put the rest in a freezer safe container, and you can save it so if you have some cold winter day when you miss the summertime, you could actually pull it out of the freezer and enjoy. Once you have this frozen, it'll actually stay good in your freezer for up to 2 years, so it's pretty delicious and it works pretty magically. So we're just gonna stir this now that we have it nice and warm on medium for about 3 minutes, and then we'll be good to go and it'll be delicious and ready. So for the star of the show, we are going to make halibut with a corn salsa. So first things first, let's start with our corn. So I have a saute pan here and I have 2 ears of corn, and I'm going to use my handy dandy corn shredder. This would be an excellent time to make a corny joke, but I'm better than that. So we're just going to keep, that was ridiculous. I apologize to everyone watching this. So when I put it under the heat, I don't want my corn to stick to my pan, so I also have a tablespoon of olive oil. So I'm going to pour that over the top and give that a gentle stir to break apart some of those corn pieces, get all that olive oil gently coating everything. And now what I'm going to do is put it on the heat, and I'm going to put it at about a medium, and I'm going to start gently toasting that. As I'm toasting it along the way, I might hear some pops with all of that extra liquid in the corn, but that's totally fine. That's nothing to worry about. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start slicing the other pieces for my salsa. So I have a bigger bowl to put all my pieces in, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to slice my tomatoes, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to half them. So just like that, toss it in a bowl. I'm going to do that to the whole pint of tomatoes. So we have our whole pint of tomatoes chopped up and good to go, and our corn looks good. So we're just gonna give that one more stir, and we're gonna let it cool down a bit before we add it into the tomatoes. So while it's cooling, what I'm gonna do is I am going to get my basil ready. So I'm gonna start by pulling it off the leaves. I've already rinsed it and let it dry. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna chop this up nice and fine so that I get the taste of that basil in there without getting kind of that salad feel. So we're going to take it and we're going to slice it up nice and fine. And I want about 1/3 of a cup of that sliced up basil. And I'm going to add that to my tomatoes. And now while my corn is still cooling, I'm going to add some more liquid to my salsa. So let's slide that into the middle. I'm going to start with a tablespoon of olive oil. And there is going to be some liquid from my corn, but I also want to give this a little bit of a kick to it as well. So we're going to do that with a lemon. Now remember, best way to juice a lemon is to grind it a little bit on the table, break apart some of those membranes inside the lemon. And now let's slice her up, just one hack down the middle. And we're just going to squeeze it. And remember, if we have the cut side up, then we're not going to get seeds into our salsa. I'm going to add my corn. And as soon as that warm corn hits the lemon, you're gonna right away get that scent of the lemon picking up in there. And then I'm gonna gently toss this all together. Take a peek at that, it looks delicious. Now, it's gonna be pretty boring if I don't give it a little bit of a kick. So I'm gonna do that with some pepper and some salt. And one more stir. And now we are ready to start cooking our fish. So one thing that works best with this salsa is after you get it all mixed together, you want to put it into the refrigerator for a half an hour and get it nice and chilled, and that'll be a delicious contrast to our fish. So let's get our fish going. We have our salsa chilling in the refrigerator, so it's time to make our halibut to go with. Now, I wish I had a cool story about like fishing in Alaska, but I just went to the grocery store and got this. You can pick up halibut at our grocery stores in town, or if you wanted to, you could do this with another flake fish of your choice, but I think that halibut pairs the best with the salsa that we just made. So let's get ready to grill it. So I have my grill pan over medium heat. I like to do this on cast iron, but you could do it in a regular pan if you wanted to, or I suppose if you wanted to be really fancy, you could grill it outside as well. But I'm going to take my olive oil and I'm just going to brush it over the top of my fillets, just like so. And then I am going to season them just with salt and pepper. Now, one thing to keep in mind is salt you're not going to have a problem with, but the pepper is a tricky thing. I like to use one of these mixes where you have the different colors of peppercorns. If you go just with straight black pepper, you do run the chance of possibly burning that pepper on there. So I like to do this whole mixture deal. So we will just drop that on there. And like I said, I've got this heating. So I'm going to take my tongs and I'm going to put down the side that I just seasoned. And I'm going to do the same seasoning on the back side with my oil and with my salt and my pepper. Now with the fillets that I have, being halibut, I'm going to put them on for 4 minutes on each side. And it just depends on the type of fish you choose, how long you decide that you're going to cook it. So we'll let this go for about 4 minutes. And then we'll flip and we'll do our 4 minutes again. And we will grill up all of our fillets. We'll take a peek at what that looks like in just a second. So we have our last piece of fish all cooked up and delicious. So we're going to take that out and we're going to add it to our platter. And we have 5 people eating with us tonight, so I made 5 pieces of fish. And now all I need to do is put on my corn salsa that I made just a little bit ago. We'll just put that over the top. And I don't like to put it all on there, just some, so it can start absorbing some of those flavors with the heat. Just a nice little line through the middle. And then what I like to do is put the rest into a bowl, and people can add whatever they want when it comes time to eat. So let's get everything on our table and see what our dinner looks like. So we said at the beginning, corn tastes delicious this time of year. And look at all the options we have with just 12 ears of corn. We have our corn and orzo salad. We have our now and later corn, and some's already packed away in the freezer for a treat this winter. And finally, our corn and tomato salsa on top of our freshly grilled halibut. It's delicious. And it's a nice break from just having that corn right off the cob. So remember, the apron's optional, but the flavor isn't. Sweet corn stands are popping up around Hastings, so let's see what we can do to spice it up.
Sounds good. And I'll cut there.